Good afternoon. I hope everybody has had a fantastic weekend, nice and chilled, and then ready to hit the week. So we're on Monday motivation. So keep an eye out on the posts that I've been putting up, because I think sometimes we just need that kickstart on a Monday to really kind of get our week going. So today, one of the things I wanted to particularly talk about is about the correct advisors. And this is something that I've really seen with my clients, that they're just not getting the advice and the assistance that they should be getting from people who effectively they rely on for that information. And it seems to be a really common theme. Now, when I was running my law firm, I genuinely know that I didn't, for a very long time, have the right people giving me the guidance. So a prime example for that was my accountant. So they did my end of year accounts, they did my personal tax return, which a lot of people will say, well, hang on a second, Sarah, that's what an accountant does. Well, one of the things that I've particularly learned is actually a good accountant does a lot more than that, and they should be doing a lot more than that. And actually, one of the things that I'm particularly finding is it's actually the accountants that are the ones where my clients are really having a difficult time with, because ultimately, as a business owner, 9 times out of 10, you aren't necessarily going to know whether your accountant is doing, or any other type of advisor is actually doing the job that they're supposed to be doing, because you don't know necessarily any different. Unless you've experienced a range of different advisors and different accountants, for example, you're not going to know whether that they're not actually giving you the advice that you should be. It's only when sometimes you have a third party, like, for example, when I come in as a business consultant and I look at the business and I'll look at the accounts. I don't hold myself out to be a financial advisor. I'm not a qualified accountant, but I have learned a lot over the years in terms of accounts from the correct people. I had a consultant financial director. I changed accountants, and the accountant that I use now, and it's going to be a bit of a shout out here, which is Cheryl Sharp of Pink Pig Financials. She's absolutely fantastic. And I know that with her, if I've got a question, I can literally pick up the phone and I can ask her, or I can email her. And if she's with a client or something, she will always come back to me. And what she's great is the fact that she adapts. And she adapts depending on her client. So she knows that I'm, pretty clued up. She knows that I like to learn new things. She knows that I want to know a bit more on the technical. Whereas a number of clients, obviously, they pay her to do the technical. They're not interested in the technical. So she will make that change depending on what her clients' needs are. But what she does is she goes above and beyond. And the reason why she goes above and beyond is that she will actually answer the questions. So, for example, one of my clients recently, they're in the processes of wanting to buy a house. So they need to know how much they can take out of their business in terms of their dividends to be able to get the mortgage that they need. And this particular client was having a nightmare, because they were going from 1 minute where the mortgage advisor was saying, you need to speak to your accountant, and your accountant saying, you need to speak to your mortgage advisor. And they weren't getting straight answers. So I made sure that this particular client had a conversation with my accountant. And basically, without even doing too much digging, she managed to get the answer that she needed one way or another. And that's the thing is, for me, being an advisor, being a consultant, being a coach, or being any form of advisor, what your clients so frequently want is direct answers. And that is where I'm finding, particularly, like I say, with my clients at the moment, the biggest obstacle is in relation to accountants, where they're not giving the advice. I've got another client who genuinely, I'm shocked, they've not formed a limited company, when in reality, by now, because of the amount of money that they're turning over. They should have been a limited company a long time ago. But it's only when I'm coming into the business and I'm looking at the business, I'm reviewing it, I can then say, well, hang on a second, this does not make any sense. Doesn't make any sense for tax reasons. And I'm obviously not a tax advisor, but on a common sense basis, I'm looking at it and think, what on earth is going on? Why have you not been given this advice by now? So what I'm saying to you is, really do look at the advisors in which you've got. Make sure that you actually have a team of advisors. One of my biggest issues right from the get-go when I had the law firm was I actually didn't have the advisors that I should have done. I should have had a marketing expert. I should have had an HR expert. To be fair, I did have to a certain degree, but that was, wasn't more of an informal basis. Yes, I had an accountant, but the accountant, like I said, wasn't giving me advice. At the end of my year, when they'd done my accounts, they didn't sit down with me and say, look, Sarah, this is your situation. These are things that I would say you need to consider. Or if I was making a big decision, they didn't sit down with me and say, look, Sarah, looking at your numbers, we're not sure whether you should be doing this. They just did the end of the year. And also because I was a law firm, there was other regulatory things that they had to deal with. But as a whole, I didn't actually get advice. And one of the things I would say then to people is when you speak to your accountant, can you speak to your accountants on a regular basis? Can you ask them questions? Do you know your numbers? Can you go into your accounts package, for example, if you've got something like Xero? Are your accounts up to date? So I know some people, they'll have a bookkeeper because they don't necessarily want to be doing their own bookkeeping. It's, that's completely understandable. But can you actually go into your accounts, look at your profit and loss and your balance sheet? And some of you may be thinking, what the hell are even those? And I would say they're just two of your management reports that you should be looking at on a regular basis. Can you look at that information? And if you're not sure about that information, can you speak to your accountant and say, can you explain this information to me? Because ultimately, you need to know your numbers throughout the course of the year, not just at the end of the year. Ultimately, at the end of the year, all that does is give you information about the past, and it doesn't give you your current information right now. So your accountant is probably one of the most important advisors that you should have a good relationship with and should be in regular communication with, not just at the end of the year or when they do your VAT return. It should be on a consistent basis. You should be able to ask questions. But the other key thing I would say that you need to be aware of is when you're asking those questions, are they jargon-free answers? Or when they're coming back to you, are you reading the responses and thinking, I don't understand a word of what they're talking about? Because a good advisor should be actually explaining to you things in layman's terms, not just in an accountancy terms. One of the things I really did try hard with as a lawyer is try not to speak to my clients with legal jargon, because ultimately they're not necessarily going to understand what I'm explaining unless they've been in the legal profession or they've experienced the legal world on a more frequent basis. As a general principle, as a business owner, we're good at what we do in our business. Whether we are a painter and decorator or a plumber, electrician, whether you're a builder, a florist, a beauty therapist, that's your skill set. And as a business owner, you do develop and you obviously expand those skill sets. But we aren't all built the same. There are some people who are, for example, more creative. So when it comes to their marketing, they might not necessarily have a graphic designer because they can do a certain element of it themselves. Or perhaps, you've got a bit of an IT mind, so you do a proportion of your IT yourself. And certainly at the beginning, when you're smaller, when there is a limited budget, it makes perfect sense for you to do those bits and pieces if you've got the know-how or you've got the ability to learn those additional skills. But ultimately, as a business owner, what you should have is those team of advisors around you that you can, when you've got a particular thing that needs doing, you turn to them. So when you've got a money or financial question, you turn to your accountant. When you've got a HR issue, you either turn to your internal HR or you have a company that you revert to. If you're looking to recruit somebody, you go to your recruiter. If you've got, in terms of your marketing strategy, you will have, you should have some either a in-house marketing person, or a team, or you may well have an external marketing agency that helps you. In that agency, they might have their own graphic designer, or you might go to somebody that is independent that designs your work. If you need assistance in terms of your IT, you will have either an internal or an external IT person. Ultimately, these are all people that you need to be able to trust and feel comfortable and know that they are looking after you. And unfortunately, I think we've come into a bit of a world where I'm not saying all, but I think sometimes some of the bigger companies, they forget about the actual customer service. They forget, in terms of the language in which they're using. And I think even I'm seeing it where even some are having, being taken advantage of to a certain degree. Like, I was speaking to somebody recently, and they were talking about where their IT company had grown, that they were using, and actually they were accessing and they were doing things that the customer didn't even know about. And this is where, for me, you've got to trust your advisors. If you don't have the trust, then what do you have? It's the same as a relationship. If you don't have trust, what do you actually have? And I think it's so important that you need to be able to trust your advisors, and you need to be able to ask your advisors questions. If you want to, for example, understand something more clearly, you need to be able to ask the questions, and they should be coming back to you and giving you those answers, not fobbing you off, not saying, well, you don't need to know that. It's your business. You are entitled to know anything and everything about the advisors as to what they are doing. You don't necessarily need to know all of the ins and outs of the technicals, because that's why you get them on board in the first place. But don't be afraid to ask your advisors questions. Make sure that you are getting what you want out of their services. And if you're not getting what you want, have a conversation with them. Make sure that the expectations are known on both sides, because it does work both ways. Because ultimately, for example, a marketing agency may well need certain information from you for them to be able to market your business effectively. In the same way, you want them to be doing their job properly so that you're getting your leads through the door. It is both sides. It is about give and take, but be prepared to ask them questions. Don't just let them get on with it. Ask the questions, find the information out, explore. And for me, having those advisors is absolutely crucial, because as a business owner, you can't do everything yourself. You do often as at the very beginning of a business, because you don't have the budget that you can then pay for all of these advisors. But one of the types of advisors that I would always say that you should have is one, obviously your accountant right from the get-go. A good accountant is absolutely crucial. You do want to ideally have a lawyer or a law firm in which you have a good relationship with. But what you also, I would say, is absolutely critical is having a business consultant or coach on board. Now, you're probably going to say, well, Sarah, that's what you do. Of course, you're going to say that. I'm saying that because often a business consultant / coach can actually give you the guidance so you know which advisors you specifically need for a particular issue. Now, obviously me, as everybody does, generally knows, is I practiced as a solicitor for over a decade. I had my own law firm for 7 years. So I know as a business coach / consultant, I can actually see things that sometimes other types of business consultants and coaches can't see, because of my legal background. I can do the risk assessment in the sense of I can look at a situation and think, that's likely to flag up, that's likely to come back and bite you. Or I'm looking at certain documentation and I'm thinking that needs updating. These are the sorts of things that I can see in a way that some perhaps business consultants / coaches can't see. But I also will look at a business as a whole. I don't just look at little segments. For example, one of the things I will always do before I take on a client is I'll do a strategy session, and that strategy session is effectively just getting a picture of the business and looking at what are the areas in which that need more focus than others. So for example, if a business needs more leads, what are the existing marketing strategies that are working at this moment in time? What other strategies could they then put into place? What is their sales process, for example? Is the sales process actually working? Are there leads that are falling away? These are just some of the things, the financials. Like I say, I'm not a financial advisor, I'm not an accountant, but one thing I have learned over the years is I can look at a set of accounts and I can see where things might need some adjustment. And what I'll then do is say, right, is your accountant actually doing their job effectively? And potentially even sitting in meetings with those advisors and asking key questions that sometimes clients just might not even necessarily think of, because it's not the way that their mind actually works. But by having those discussions, the clients can get a clearer picture. And by even one of my clients recently, I sat and I went through Xero with them. They didn't even know in terms of where the reports were. They didn't know certain information, which to me, an accountant, when they're transitioning you over to a piece of software, they should be giving you either some training or leading you to a direction as to where you can do the training that you need to be able to use the software. Because 9 times out of 10 business owners aren't accountants. They're not bookkeepers. They've not done the qualification. They don't know what a nominal is. They don't know, they don't know necessarily that a profit and loss should be looked at on a regular basis, or what a balance sheet is. Which is why, for example, and I'm referring to Cheryl again right now, Cheryl does some fantastic webinars where she's, they're all completely free, where she's teaching people about what a profit and loss and balance sheet is, and talking about how you can improve your time. Ultimately, that's where a good accountant will help you, because they will make sure that they will put the guides out there. So even if you don't necessarily need to have a one-to-one session with your accountant. If they're good, they'll have articles, they'll have webinars, they'll have content, they will have the information out there. At the moment, I'm trying to build my article content, because ultimately I want to be able to provide value to potential clients and my clients. One of the things that I'm building at this moment in time is an accelerator program for my clients, so that actually that they can then focus on key particular areas that a lot of business owners, may not necessarily even be aware of. And that's why, for me, doing this accelerator program is so important, because what I'm all about is about making businesses efficient and effective, and therefore more profitable. By being more profitable, it means that the business owners, you have that freedom, because ultimately you want to be the reason why you often have a business is because you want freedom. You want to be able to do what you want when you want. But often your business doesn't allow you to do that, because it's not running in as efficiently and as effectively as possible. So by doing this 90-day accelerator program, I'm focusing on particular areas that I know that businesses are have challenges with, and I'm making sure that you have the foundations, so that when you are building your business is growing, because you then have an understanding of these core areas. So I'll go back to the point of, are you getting the advice that you need from your advisors? Do you have a team of advisors that you can truly trust, that you can depend on, and that are giving you good, solid advice, not just once a year, but when you actually really need it? So just as a bit of a recap, these are the key advisors I would say that every business owner should have. That is a great accountant, absolute number one. You should have a lawyer or law firm that you use, that, you know, for it, making sure that things like your employment contracts are done, making sure you've got shareholders agreements if you've got, you know, you're a limited company and there's more than one of you that own the business, just as a prime example. You know, if you're moving premises, that they can do a commercial lease. These are just some of the things I used to do, for example, for my clients. So a good lawyer or a good law firm that you've got that you can refer to on legal issues. A business consultant / coach is absolutely fundamental, because they can give you the guidance to steer you in the right direction for your growth. If you need other advisors, they will often be able to recommend. I know that I do, okay? You should have somebody that is, in terms of HR, particularly if you're starting to take on staff. Marketing, make sure you've got a great marketing agency or marketing expert that you can refer to. You know, recruiter if you're larger and you're needing to be able to recruit people. They are just some, and I may have forgotten somebody off the top of my head, but they are just some of the key advisors that I would say you should have. And make sure that you are asking them questions. Pick their brains. You're paying for a service, so make sure you're getting the information that you need to be able to make your business grow, to be able to build your business, to be able to make sure that your business is efficient and effective and as profitable as possible, so that you as a business owner have the freedom that you want. Now, if any of that has resonated with you, then I would say, please do contact me. We can do a free strategy session. We can do the review of your business. We can see that whether you've got the right advisors on board, and we can just do a deep dive into your business and see where in which you need to make those improvements to be as efficient and effective and therefore more profitable. I will pop a link in the comments if you want to be able to book into my calendar for that free session. And I hope that today you've got some value from some of the things I've talked about. It's been a bit of a longer session this time round, but I really do think it's so important to ensure that you have the correct advisors helping you and supporting you, because by having those advisors, it means that you can grow and be as effective and as efficient as possible, and therefore more profitable. So I hope you've gained some benefit from what I've said. If anything resonates, please do book in a strategy session with me. I'll be gladly help. As I explained, I'm helping a number of different clients right now, making sure that their business is more efficient and effective. I'm looking at a number of different components. I've got the 90-day accelerator program that I'll be talking more and more about as I develop it. So there is plenty of opportunity where I know I can help so many of you. So thanks for listening. You'll no doubt see me come back up here again, hopefully tomorrow, and I'll be sharing some more helpful hints and tips to make sure that you as a business are more effective and efficient and therefore more profitable, enabling freedom for you as the business owner. Thanks for listening.